Hi everybody, welcome back to Push and Paint. I think everyone's growing a bit bored with landscapes. Maybe let's do something a little different. So what we're doing here is a double portrait. I've got it drawn out here and I've got my fixative on there so it's not going to rub away when I start to paint. It's a scene from one of my favorite movies, actually probably my favorite movie, the Shawshank Redemption. Portraits are not my strong suit. I'm going to do some time-lapse filming. I'm going to do some explanatory filming where I nice and slow it down and kind of show everybody what I'm doing and try and describe the process of portrait painting. Now for this, I watched some videos myself and read a few things about different color ideas and ways to match skin tones and things like that, and it's an interesting process. So I hope you enjoy. If you feel like painting along, go right ahead. Let's have some fun with it. Maybe you just like watching. Either way, let's have some fun and let's push some paint. Okay, so this is a bit of a change for me. So you can see the drawing here. I've got my reference photo up there. I'm going to be going back to that a lot. I'm going to be going back to that a lot. And let's just show you some of the stuff that I'm using. And I apologize already because my workstation is a mess here, but here's my palette. What you'll notice, if you're new to painting and new to portraits especially, is there is no flesh colored paint. There is flesh colored paint, but I'm not using any. I have a mix of reds, burnt sienna, Prussian blue, and phthalo blue here on the end. I've got cadmium yellow and I've got yellow ochre, and I've got the titanium white. I've got three different types of crimson or red paint. That's a cadmium red in the middle there, and that's a crimson, that's a crimson. Okay. Now, also for this, all my fan brushes are put away, and I've got these big honking brushes there, all the mixing stuff. You can see my shop towels there. It's just a mess. Here I've got Gamblin oil painting medium, and that is just to smooth those paints out a little bit so they flow off of the brush onto the canvas. We're working with a much smoother process. It's a lot of natural blending that we want to take care of. We want all these colors to sort of work together. We don't want a lot of things standing out. So, and what I mean when I say there's no flesh tone, we're building flesh tones using different blues and browns and yellows and reds. It's a layering and a building of those flesh tones piece by piece. You sort of just start off simple and go from there. So let's get to it. Let me set my camera back up here so it's stationary and we'll get started. Okay, so first off, what we're doing here is just blocking in the background, and I'm not entirely sure what I want to do there. It's going to be a bit of kind of a pale blue sky, almost a gray. I'm going to use a lot of medium on here because we're just blocking in the background. And I suppose I can use a bigger brush, but I'm not focusing on the background too much in this painting. I am more just getting the basic colors on there so that I have the faces standing out. So I'm just putting this on in any way, shape, or form, and it's okay if I mess with my faces a little bit here. I should use my palette knife instead of mixing my colors around. And I can mix it with the brush. I just don't want to get my paints mixed up here on the palette. These 1-inch brushes were right loose. There we go. And this will leave some refining too. But what I want is, that's what I learned from one of the videos, it's basically just a contrast of background. Oh, that's probably going to fall several times. And that's going to be the bane of my existence for the next week or so that it takes me to mess with this painting. Again, I'm just getting some paint on the canvas here. I like the darkness of this background. I don't know, I might throw a little more white and blue in there just because I'd rather not have it too dark. Funny enough, I can't play the music from The Shawshank Redemption over the video, but that's what I'm listening to in my headphones. So it's a fantastic soundtrack. If you haven't heard it before, I recommend giving it a listen. Get that all nice and close there. Very nice and loose. Getting right up to the edges of my characters here. I don't want to cover them up, but because that titanium white will cover anything up. And that is just a clashing kind of color here. It's going to hopefully, my highlights and my skin tones will be so far away from this, being that lighter color, that the faces really stand out. I love the contrast of this picture, just the shock of Andy Dufresne's face when he's about to be pushed off a roof, but he's determined to get his point across to Hadley. I couldn't remember his name for a minute. I know I remembered it. He's determined to get his point across to him before he dies. You know, trying to save his own skin. All these complementary colors, the blues and browns, and look so nice together. Just got this kind of different kind of energy. You can make it textured if you want. Let's take our shop towel, do a little jobby like that. See what we end up with is you might not be able to see it on the camera, but a cool little texture. And none of this is planned, by the way. I mean, obviously the drawing is planned, the painting is planned, but I'm not so good of a teacher that I can sit there and plan this stuff out. You know, at least not with painting. I'm still learning myself. Always learning. You know, somebody look at my stuff and they say, "Oh, that's really nice." You know, put it all together. I've got so much more to learn. That's the best part about it. Anyway, I'm gonna let the time lapse take over here for a minute, and I'll pick it up back here when we start working on some of the flesh tone spots. But let's see if I can get some of the clothing detail done, and we'll catch you back here in a minute. Kind of all over the place with this, but this is just sort of our first step here. I'm using a pretty large size brush, nothing too small yet. I might test out the synthetics and see how they work with it, just because we're putting a good amount of paint on the canvas. It's rough at the moment. You can see it. It's sort of starting to take form. None of this is finished. I did like the way this turned out right here. It just looks like that shiny rim of the cap there. Military style haircut this whole time, so it's nice and dark and then cuts cleanly. Just like so, right about to there. So we'll switch over into time lapse here and I'll keep working on this. I know I'll probably skip over a bunch of spots, but that's okay. You guys will get the gist of it. Okay, everybody, you can see we finished up this part. Did lots of little going back and forth with different colors and different tones, and lastly what I ended up doing was coming through, and the highlights, as you can see here on the ear, it was almost straight white, but basically what it did was mix with the colors underneath that I'd already put down. So that just sort of created this very light highlighted tone of the skin. One of the more tricky parts was the shiny metal stuff we had here, like the shine here and then the shine up here. And that basically is a matter of doing contrasting colors. You do your underlying color. I did like an underlying yellow mixed with yellow ochre and a little bit of white, and then basically just kind of seeing the shapes of the different colors and the different highlights and lowlights of those metal objects and just painting them in there. So, you know, you've got the braided or the corded spot on his hat here, and it's darker on the bottom and comes down to a real dark contrast right in between there, and then it goes right up to almost straight white out of the top, and I mixed a really white and lemon yellow on the top part there. So anyway, now we're going to continue and I'm going to do the same process that I did over here with Andy on the side. And I'm going to start with the hat and just kind of work my way down. And same thing, I'm just going to build each color with like doing the darker parts first and then going over those darker parts with the like lighter and lighter colors and blending those all together so that we end up with a nice transition between shadows and highlights. And then at the very end of each section we come through and we highlight, you know, put those lighter spots on. So hopefully that all works out the way we want it to. But anyway, I'm going to put it back into time lapse here and speed things up. Hopefully you're enjoying it so far. So make sure to like and subscribe, and you can hopefully see me do some more portraits and things like this coming up quick. So, alrighty.